Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. It is Friday, August 27th, 2021. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week and your transition to back to school has been successful. Some of you I know are about to go back to school. Some of you aren't there yet. Some of you have. But whatever your situation is, I hope that it's successful. And yeah, we're going to start this school year off on a positive note. We're going to be optimistic. We're going to be encouraging and wish the best for everybody as we continue to navigate through all of these uncertainties and challenges and opportunities that we are facing in our world today. I see lots of people logging in. That is fantastic. Good morning to you all. As we wait for everyone to get on Facebook Live, first off, I want to send very, very happy birthday wishes to my incredible son, Spencer. Today is his 25th birthday. So happy birthday, Spencer. I love you so much and so very proud of the young man that you have become. And it is so crazy that he is 25 years old. It doesn't make any sense at all since I'm only 32. The math doesn't add up right, however that works right there. But happy birthday to my son. I also want to take a quick moment right here to send big well wishes, thoughts, and prayers to all of our fellow Americans and allies in Afghanistan and the tragedy that is going on over there, and especially the families and friends of the individuals that we lost yesterday in the attacks over in Afghanistan. So huge well wishes, thoughts, and prayers to all of those folks out there, and I hope that everyone gets out safe and we can move past this in a peaceful manner. So yes, well wishes to them. All right, we've got a lot of new people that are joining us for the very first time this morning on Facebook Live. So if this is your first time on one of our Facebook Lives, welcome. We are so happy that you are here. You do have the opportunity to participate and ask questions and make comments over in the chat screen. Because you have that opportunity to interact with me and that this is a live session, then this does count as an instructor-led training with child care regulations, and that helps you get your instructor-led hours. So that's pretty fantastic, and we've enjoyed these. They've worked out really well for us, and I know that y'all have enjoyed them too. So thank you for continuing to be part of this. Once again, if this is your very first time, the way this works is that we will have our presentation, we will do our workshop, we can interact and ask questions and have conversations. At the end of the workshop today, I will post a link on Facebook for you to complete your online worksheet. It's 10 questions based on the material that we will go over today. And then you will pay for the workshop at that time, and then I will email you your certificate of completion. So once again, if you're watching the Facebook Live right now, it does not cost anything to watch the Facebook Live and participate. You just have to pay if you are needing that certificate of completion, which most of you do. That's why you're here, right? So that's kind of how that works right there. Pretty simple stuff. Most of you have been doing this, so you're very familiar with it. All right. We're going to talk today about management techniques, leadership skills, and staff supervision. And there's a little bit of a purpose behind this particular topic this morning. Number one, starting off the school year, we need to sharpen the tools in our wheelhouse and kind of think outside of the box when it comes to management techniques and leadership skills. And so it's just a good time to have that refresher on this particular topic. But also with childcare regulations under minimum standards 746, 1311, any of y'all that have been a designated director for 5 years or more, then you need 3 hours of training each year on management techniques, leadership skills, and staff supervision. So this training right here will help you be in compliance with childcare regulations and will meet that expectations. Now, if you've been a designated director for less than 5 years, then you need 6 hours of training on management techniques, leadership skills, and staff supervision. So you'll get 3 hours for today's session, and then we have multiple other topics on our website that fall into the category of management that will help you get those additional 3 hours if you've been a director for less than 5 years. All right, so I'm trying to help y'all out in staying compliant with the standards, and we're going to knock it out right here in one Friday morning. I really want to try to make this a non-COVID related training. I would really like to try to stick to, just like I said, management techniques and leadership skills. As much as I would love to make this a non-COVID webinar, y'all, it's going to come up, okay? We're dealing with a lot of challenges, new challenges that even this time last year we weren't facing. We're right back to having a lot of uncertainties, and we've got different regulatory agencies, different offices of our government that are giving us many mixed signals and different directions. So we're kind of right back to where we were, months and months ago, but y'all, we'll get through it. We'll get through it, for sure. I got a question. This is a good question right here. Can multiple people watch from the same device, and then do their questions separately? Absolutely. You can have as many people on one device watching this video as needed. Just each individual person will need to complete their online worksheet at the end of it. But yes, especially tomorrow on Saturday, we have a lot of people that will just project the Facebook Live onto a big screen or a smart TV, and 25, 30, 40 people will watch at one time. That is perfectly okay. Just each person will need to do their worksheet, and they can do that on their smartphone, their tablet, their computer, whatever works best. All right. I got another question about how do we get the certificate. You must have logged in late because I just covered that. But at the end of the webinar, I will post a link that you will click on that you will complete a worksheet, and that's how you will get your certificate. So there you go. All right. So let's kind of move on. All right, so like I said, we got a lot of new situations going on, so it's a great time to sharpen the tools in our wheelhouse when it comes to management techniques and leadership. Y'all know that I'm all about being optimistic and being positive and spreading that positive energy in our programs. Our early childhood programs, our after-school programs, they should be a joyful place, not only for the children that we service, but our school family, our employees that we have. And we want to be positively contagious when it comes to leading our program. There's actually research that is that is backed by this, backed by research that when you are a positively contagious leader, all right, it affects the entire business, your employees, your customers, the community. They all feed off of your energy. When we want to talk about brain science, we can talk about mirror neurons. And we have what's called mirror neurons in our brain. Basically, my state influences your state. So whatever emotional state I'm in is going to be an influence on those around me. Now, if we were doing a teacher training today, my state dictates your state. So whatever emotional state the adult is in will dictate the state of the child. When we're talking about interacting with adults, my state influences your state. All right. So again, being positively contagious is so incredibly important. All right. Now, this is a tough job. And being a director, being a leader of an early childhood program and after school program, I'm sure all of you will very quickly raise your hand and agree with me that this is a tough job, all right? So many times when I'm teaching my director credential 4-day class, I'll have people that register for class and they'll come in on that first day and they're like, oh, anyone can do this. And I just kind of have to laugh at them because I'm like, oh, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. And so, this is tough. You're dealing with the personalities of the staff, the personalities of the parents and the customers, the personality of the children. Not to mention the fact that I might need to remind some of you that you are human too. And you're going to have emotions and you're going to have good days and bad days. You've got your own personal life and things going on in your personal life that as much as we try to practice leaving that at the door, it comes to work with us sometimes, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who called in and was needing some guidance and coaching on a situation that they had going on in their school. And 15 minutes into the conversation, she says, and I'm also, while I'm dealing with this, I'm also quarantined in my own home because they had a positive case within a family member. So, she's trying to deal with these situations at her school while also dealing with her own family, health situations. So, yeah, we're human and we need to recognize that. All right. But you've got to practice, and you're going to hear me say this a lot today, that we are going to practice leadership. All right. We're going to practice management. You're not always going to get it right. When a baseball player goes up to the plate, all right, and the pitcher pitches the ball, they're not always going to hit a home run. All right. Sometimes they're going to strike out. Sometimes they're going to get a foul ball. All right. Sometimes they might get a single, a double, or a triple. But they're not going to get that home run. They're not going to get that grand slam every single time they go up to the plate. Y'all, it's no different when it comes to leadership and management. We're going to practice these skills. We're going to practice these techniques. Sometimes you're going to strike out. All right. Sometimes you're going to hit a foul ball. Sometimes you're going to hit that grand slam. All right. But we're going to have grit. We're going to have determination, and we're not going to give up. And when you do strike out, you go back to the dugout, you sit down, you get yourself together. And when it's your turn to come up to bat again, you go back up to that plate and you practice once again. All right. And even though you struck out, last time, you might hit that grand slam this time. All right. So it's about being conscious and being aware of your emotional state, knowing that we're going to practice these skills, and being conscious enough to be able to say, I should not be making a decision right now. Or being conscious enough to be able to say, I should not be having a conversation with this person right now. All right. That's what we've got to practice on the most. Are my triggers exposed? All right. And I want y'all to imagine, buttons on your shirt. And sometimes people come in and they push our buttons, all right? And when our buttons are exposed, people are going to push them, all right? This is what I tell teachers when I'm coaching teachers. When you walk into a classroom and your buttons are exposed, the children will push those buttons, all right? Y'all, from a management point of view, when your buttons are exposed, your employees and your customers will push your buttons. We've got to work on not exposing our buttons. All right, we're going to turn them inside out and we're not going to make them available. And recognizing that the only person I can change is myself. And no one can make me stressed, no one can make me upset without my permission. And today, I'm not going to give you permission to make me upset. I'm not going to give you permission to make me stressed. I'm in control of my emotions. That's what we have to practice right there. All right. I will tell you in my own programs, I have 5 programs, 7 buildings that I operate. And y'all, these last 2 weeks have been crazy town. I'm sure just like for many of you, I have to wake up in the morning and I have to coach myself that no matter what the universe throws at me today, I'm in control, all right? And I'm not going to let that parent or that employee or that situation be in charge of my feelings. I'm going to be in charge of my feelings. So I'm saying all this because the first lesson that I want to talk about when we talk about management techniques, leadership skills, and staff supervision is you've got to become that positive leader. You've got to be positively contagious. And it's so incredibly important that your team and your customers never see you stressed and upset. All right? Again, this is something that we've been talking about so much over the last 18 months, all right, is that in the classroom, children cannot learn until they feel safe, all right? Children cannot behave until they feel safe. So we talk a lot with our classroom teachers that one of the most important things we do in the classroom is we create a sense of safety. All right, from the child's point of view, from their version of reality, do they feel safe in that classroom? When they feel safe in that classroom, then they can meet expectations. It's no different with adults, all right? When we're talking about the teachers that work for us, our employees, when we talk about our customers, all right, our parents and guardians, they have to feel safe in order to meet expectations, all right? So one of your main jobs as a manager is to create that sense of safety from the employee and from the customer's point of view, all right? You've got to be able to see the world from their version of reality, okay? And when you do create that sense of safety, people feel safe, they're going to be more willing to meet expectations. All right. So if you ever are in a situation where you've got a chaotic environment and you're dealing with a lot of bitterness and you're dealing with a lot of defiance, whether it's with your employees or your customers, one of the very first things I would reflect on, do they feel safe? All right. And I see, Tara saying it's hard. Absolutely, it's hard. All right. It's very, very hard. You've got to be conscious of this and aware of this. And do you know how you're going to create that sense of safety? Composure. All right. Your composure is everything. And you being able to maintain your composure, especially when things start getting chaotic and rocky, people are going to be looking at you, the leader of the program, and they're going to be evaluating your composure. All right? Is the leader composed? If the leader is composed, people feel safe. they're able to meet expectations. But if you're stressed out and you're upset and you're frazzled, all right, then they start going, wait a second, we may not be safe here, okay? Or in our environment, the children may not be safe here, all right? So I'm going to talk a lot today about maintaining composure and being aware of your composure. So this topic is going to come up multiple times throughout the morning, and how to maintain that composure. I've already talked about your buttons being exposed. We got to turn those buttons inside out, all right? Be aware of your triggers. Know what behaviors will push your buttons, and make yourself a list from employees and customers, parents. What are behaviors that trigger you? Things that they say, things that they do. And you're going to make a list, like I said, 2 different lists, because we're going to talk about employees, we're going to talk about customers. What are some behaviors that you know is a trigger for you? Write them down. Get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper. That's going to make you more aware of these triggers. All right. Now you're going to keep this to yourself. This is going to be a private document that you keep in your desk drawer or wherever. You're not going to post this on your office wall. Beware before you come in this office. Know that these are my triggers. You're not going to do that. But when you're aware of your triggers, then when someone does come in and they do make that comment or they do have that behavior that you know is a trigger, that's going to be your cue to stop, take a deep breath, and relax. And tell yourself, I can handle this. I can help this adult with their problem. All right? And when you're aware of those triggers, then, I forgot it. I just did a training at my home office, and so some of my tools I left there. But I have a pause button that I normally hold up. But when you're aware of your triggers, all right, then that's when you know you got to hit the pause button, okay? And successful managers know how to hit the pause button, all right, when you have a customer or an employee that is trying to push your buttons. Okay, I'm going to hit the pause button, stop, take a deep breath, relax. I'm safe. I can handle this. And I'm going to turn this challenge into an opportunity. And we're going to talk about this quite a bit today too. Changing our point of view, changing our perspective, all right? People must be seen different before they can act different. So instead of looking at this as a challenge or an obstacle, I'm going to look at this as an opportunity, all right? An opportunity to lead. I want y'all to think about the difference between management and leadership. And there's a big difference between the two, all right? Where management, when we talk about management, that is all about holding people to expectations, holding people accountable. You're going to have policies, you're going to have processes, you're going to have protocols in place. And when I'm a manager, I am keeping everybody in their lane, and I'm, supporting individuals so that they can meet the expectations that we have in place. I'm managing them, all right? It's kind of flat. It is how I kind of view this right here. Here are the expectations. Here are the policies and processes. I'm here to make sure that you meet them, all right? But it's pretty flat. Leadership is when I'm going to look for the best in them, and I'm going to bring out the best in them. And we're not only going to meet expectations, but we're going to exceed expectations. And I'm going to grow that person, all right? I'm going to influence that person, all right? That's leadership right here. So when I look at leadership, it's going up. All right. So it's not flat, it's going up, and we're creating new opportunities within that person. So always kind of be aware when you're in a situation, am I managing or am I leading? All right. Am I managing or am I leading? All right. Always keep that in mind. Years ago, we used to use the phrase, and I used to use this a lot. You got to fake it till you make it. All right. You got to fake it till you make it. Well, we now know that that's a big pile of poop. All right. You can't fake it till you make it. All right. Your leadership skills, you being positively contagious, you being composed, has to be genuine. It has to be real. And when you're faking it, people know. All right. People are aware of those moments that you're faking it. And I want y'all to kind of think about anytime you've been in a customer service situation, whether you are at Walmart trying to return an item, or you're at the DMV, or the post office, or on the phone with an airline, trying to make a change in travel plans, and how many of you have been in that situation where it is so obvious that this person is faking their personality and they're faking their customer service skills, that it's not genuine. And that's frustrating, and in your brain, you're like, this is going to go bad. All right. They're not going to meet my expectations and this is going to turn into a disaster. All right. So, people can tell when you're faking it. I'm just reading a comment right here. Oh yeah, just there's so much more work, in our industry. There's so much more expectation in our industry than even when you compare to like public schools. Being a principal in a public school or an administrator in a public school. I don't think people realize how heavily regulated we are in this industry, and how many rules that we have to follow and expectations that we have to follow, not just from one, but multiple different regulatory agencies. And it's tough, all right? And especially right now during the pandemic, that's been very, very discouraging for many, many people, because we are getting different messages from different agencies. And of course, right now, those of you that operate after school programs, the big frustration is that the protocols that the elementary schools are following when it comes to positive COVID cases are completely opposite of what we're being expected to follow with Health and Human Services. And it's very, very frustrating. And at some point, we're going to get on the same page, but right now we're not, and it's hard. All right. But that's where, again, I got to be in control, and I'm not going to let this situation push my buttons, and I'm going to remain positively contagious, because my people, my employees and my customers need me to be positively contagious. All right. But just be aware that when you are faking it, people are aware of that. All right. And I want y'all to start being a little bit more conscious of when you're in a situation and you can tell when someone is faking their customer service skills, because when you start noticing this out in the world, it's going to make you more conscious of when you're doing it in your program. All right. And when we talk about being a positive leader, it's more than words. All right. It's actions too. And, being fully aware of your body language, your body language, your composure, your tone of voice, all right, your fluctuation. All of this is going to be a big part of being that positive leader. Y'all hear me say this in so many of my workshops, and I say it all the time because it's so incredibly important for us to have these daily reminders of this right here. But you know, people don't get burned out because of the job that they do. They get burned out because they forget why they do it. All right. And over the last 18 months, being an administrator, being a leader, being a manager during this pandemic, we've had to constantly remind ourselves why we are here and why we do what we do. So, you know, especially if any of you are brand new managers, you're a brand new leader, know what you stand for. All right. And write that down. Kind of come up with your own personal mission statement. All right. As a leader, as a manager, come up with your own mission statement so that you know what you stand for. And I encourage you to put it, you know, right here on your desk. All right. Print it off on some really nice paper, put it in a frame, and put it right there on your desk. So you always know what you stand for. All right. That is that constant reminder of this is why I do what I do. All right. And that will help you, again, be genuine with your positive attitude and knowing what you stand for right there. It also is going to help you with the composure when people are pushing your buttons and they're triggering you. All right, I'm going to stop, take a deep breath, and then look at what I stand for. All right, and what kind of leader I want to become. Okay, I'm all about terms and definitions, and you know, I kind of have this mission that I'm on right now, especially with childcare regulations, of making sure that we're all using the right terms and definitions, the terms and words for certain things. That's the only way we're going to get on the same page. Like, for example, today's workshop, those of you that are watching this live on Facebook, this is an instructor-led training. And 20% of your training hours can be instructor-led. But so many times people call and they're like, I need in-person training, or I need face-to-face training. All right, y'all, there's nothing in the child care minimum standards called in-person or face-to-face. It's called instructor-led training. So, you know, we got to get everyone on the same page. Well, when we're talking about operating our programs and working with our employees and working with our parents, I prefer to use the word leadership. All right. And these are our leaders, and you're the leader of the program rather than you're the manager. All right. You know, because again, when we're managing, we're just flat and we're meeting expectations. When we're leading, we're encouraging and we're growing. All right. So I prefer to use the word leadership or leaders when it comes to all of you that are operating our fantastic programs right there. As you're looking at your management techniques, and this is going to kind of start getting us into staff supervision a little bit, you know, I want you to take a really good look at your culture, all right, and the culture of your program. Positive leaders drive positive cultures, and you create the culture of your school. The director, the leader, the administrator, whatever role that you're in your program, you set the tone for culture, all right? Now remember, culture is defined at the top, but it's lived from the bottom up. So you can be the leader of your program and you can define culture all day long, but if your employees aren't living it, if they're not transferring it, then it means nothing. All right. So you can't just define your culture. You've got to be part of your culture. And you've got to be the role model of what you want your culture to be about. All right. Again, what do you stand for? What is your mission? What are your values? What are your philosophies? What type of environment do you want your school to be? And you've got to be the role model. So many times in my career, especially as a district manager, as a consultant, as a coach, as an operator, I go into schools and I see the manager is the one with the negative attitude, and the manager is the one stirring the pot and creating drama within the school. And then they're the first ones to say, I'm so frustrated because it's so negative around here, and these teachers have such poor attitudes, and they're so defiant, and they don't meet any expectations. And I want to just hold up a mirror and say, you want to know why? Look in the mirror. All right. But if you're, the manager of the program, and you're stirring the pot and you're being negative and you're talking about people behind their back, you can't get too upset with your employees because they're just following your lead. All right. So once again, difference between manager and leader. A leader isn't going to talk about people behind their back. A leader isn't going to manipulate and stir the pot. All right. We're going to be the role model for who we want our program to be. Okay. So culture is one of your most important jobs, and to be able to maintain that positive culture right there. In my opinion, culture beats strategy any day, every day, all day long. You can have a strategy for maintaining a quality program, for maintaining compliance, a strategy for having a profitable program, a accredited program, or a 4-star program. All right, and we put these strategies in place. But if your culture isn't established, and especially if it's not a positive culture, then those strategies mean nothing. All right. And, I'm in a situation right now where I've got one school that is going through Texas Rising Star. We just had our 1-year anniversary of being open. So we have started the process of Texas Rising Star. I've got 4 programs that are going through reaccreditation, or actually 3 of the 4 programs that are going through reaccreditation. Our programs are accredited by the National Accreditation Commission, and so it's time for us to go through reaccreditation. So these are some big tasks that we have in front of us, and we have a strategy to meet these goals, to be reaccredited, to achieve 4 stars with Texas Rising Star. But, when I'm working with our leadership team, to meet these goals, the very first thing we're going to look at is culture. All right. Because we've got to make sure that our school family, and that's what we call it in our world, this is our school family. We've got to make sure that our school family is connected. All right. That they're connected, that they're compassionate, that they're caring for one another. And all of these, characteristics have to be in place first. All right. That culture has to be solid before you can achieve any of those goals. Okay. And that's important. And create that culture that people feel. And I like to use this as a measure. When you walk into a program, you can feel culture. All right. When you walk into an environment, and think about, someone's home. All right. How many of you have ever visited a friend? You visited their home for the first time, or a family member, maybe someone you haven't seen in a long time, and you were invited to their home for a dinner party or whatnot. And y'all know when you walk into that house, you kind of feel this energy. All right. Is it a very comfortable, nurturing, positive, calm environment? Or do you walk in and you immediately feel chaos? All right. You immediately feel turbulence, whenever you walk into that environment, and you can feel that. So I want you to ask yourself, when people come into your school, when parents are visiting your school, when employees are first applying for their job, when they walk in, what kind of energy do they feel? All right. They may turn right around and walk out, or they might kind of go, wow, it feels good in here. I really like the energy of this school. I kind of want to work here. You know, um, we've been having a lot of conversation lately about turnover of staff, the inability to hire staff, the inability to recruit staff. We've been dealing with this staffing shortage, for several months now. And it's not just us; it's every industry out there, that is needing staff. Everyone is short staffed right now. Excuse me. But when we talk about, how can we reduce turnover of staff? When we interview people, how can we get them to, come back for the second interview or come back on the first day of work? Well, I really want you to reflect on the energy of your school. All right. And what type of energy are you putting off? Do you have positive intent? All right. But that might be one of the reasons why we're struggling with staffing right now, is because we're so chaotic, because we're trying to deal with the COVID mess that's going on, and people pick up on that, and then they're like, I don't think I want to work here. All right. So create that culture that people feel. Uh, I don't know exactly which leadership book I read this in. It's probably been mentioned in multiple leadership books. But invest in the root if you want the fruit. All right. So if you want quality fruit, all right, you can't just go polish that fruit and give it some water and make it nice and tasty and season it all up and cut it up. That's not going to make it, quality fruit. You got to invest in the root. All right. So, look at, the processes and the protocols, the policies that you have in place. But most importantly, how are you supporting your people? All right. And coaching those teachers and leading those teachers. All right. Providing the support that they need to be successful in the classroom. Providing that emotional support that they desperately need right now during this difficult time. All right. And when they know that you're there for them, then they will produce quality results in the classroom. All right. So you've got to invest in the root and be there for your people. Give them the tools that they need to be successful. All right. And we can sit here and talk about money and benefits and incentives and all of these type of things all day long. Y'all, most of the time, they just want to know that you're there for them. All right. They just want to know that you're there for them, to support them, to encourage them. All right. And sometimes hold their hand, and you'll be amazed at the difference that you'll get right there. And just keep in mind also that you never stop building culture. Culture is ongoing. All right. You can't just establish it and then expect it to be there. It's just like a relationship. All right. When you're in a relationship, with your significant other, you get married and you say, I do. That doesn't guarantee that everything's going to be wonderful and perfect for the rest of your life. just because you made that commitment and you said, I do. You've got to continuously work on that relationship, all right? And continue to build that relationship and understand that our social development, is constantly adapting. It's constantly adapting. Our emotional state is constantly changing. So you've got to be willing to adapt and change as well. So you constantly work on your relationships. You constantly work on your culture. All right. Lead with optimism. All right. I think this is so incredibly important. And I understand, y'all, it's in the air this week. And it's so ironic that we're doing this workshop today because I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people this week about, their gas tank is empty. Their bucket is empty. And they just don't know how much more they can take and how much more they can be there with this difficult time that we've been through. I know it's tough, all right? I'm a member of that club too. Trust me, I get down sometimes too. But we've got to have optimism. We've got to have hope, all right? And it's the optimism and it's the hope that's going to get us through this. It's working together. Sabrina said we can win together. Yes. And we've got to stick together and we've got to work together and we've got to understand each other with an open mind. Understand each other with an open mind. All right? That it's okay for us to have difference of opinions. It's okay for us to believe different things. All right? Beliefs and values are a big part of our world right now. Beliefs and values. Just because someone believes in something different than you do, or vice versa, it doesn't make them our enemy. But the only way we're going to get through this and to get past this pandemic and to get past this crisis that we're in right now, with staffing and with business, is that if we understand each other unconditionally and we support each other and we work together, all right? Instead of fighting each other, let's understand each other, work together, and we can get through this, all right? And that is being able to look at people through loving eyes, all right? Being able to look at people through loving eyes. People must be seen different before they can act different. Whether you believe in vaccinations, you don't believe in vaccinations, you wear your mask, you don't wear your mask, whatever it is, but be understanding of the other person and what their beliefs are. And just because you believe in something different, it doesn't make you enemies. All right, I can still respect you and I can still support you. All right, we just need to come up with some mutual agreements that we both can agree with that will help keep each other safe, and we'll get through this. All right, believe it and you will see it. So you got to look through the binoculars and look way past today, look past tomorrow, look past next month, all right? And look at the end game right there. And we want to have a successful program. We want to have a safe program. We want to have a profitable program. We want to have long-term employees. We hire to retire. We don't hire to fire, all right? But if you believe it, all right, then you'll see it, all right? What we focus on, we get more of. And when we talk about management techniques and leadership skills and staff supervision, those of you that are taking notes, write this down, all right? What you focus on, you get more of. So when you focus on cooperation, when you focus on celebrations, when you focus on safety, all right, when you focus on collaboration, when you focus on caring, all right, you're going to get more of it. But if your focus is only on regulations and protocols and how inconsistent and difficult they are right now, if your focus is only on being short-staffed and how am I going to cover my ratios and get enough people in here to successfully run my program, and if you're only focused on that difficult parent that is defiant and is giving you a hard time about some of your rules and processes you're putting in place to help keep your program healthy and safe for everyone, and if these are the only things you're focusing on, you're going to continue to get that struggle. All right? Shift your focus. Shift your focus. That's why, we try, in my organization, we practice celebrating as much as possible. All right. When you celebrate together, you achieve more. All right. So we're going to celebrate the little wins. All right. And it makes a big difference right there. So, yes. Oh, Chantrell, if I could give you a high five, a virtual high five, respect. Do y'all remember that word, respect, and what it means to respect one another? And that is a very important value. That is a very important characteristic to be able to respect one another, all right? Instead of them being your enemy. And when you respect people, no matter what their beliefs and values are, all right, respect goes a long way, all right? Now, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that said, it takes months and sometimes years to earn someone's respect, but respect can be lost in a moment. All right. And I think that's important right there for you to remember that respect can be lost in a moment. That you're not maintaining your composure, you not being positively contagious, you saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, making the wrong decision. All right. All of that respect that you work so hard to earn can be lost in a single moment. All right. And sometimes we have to re-earn respect. All right. But again, I think that goes back to culture right there. All right. We have this inner speech. We have this voice that is inside of our head that is constantly talking to us. Turn your inner speech into a coach. All right. Now, when we talk about leadership skills, management techniques, and especially whenever I'm training or I'm coaching brand new leaders, brand new directors, you have to have the ability to coach yourself. A big part of your job as a manager and a leader is to coach others, to encourage others, all right, to hold other people accountable. But who is going to coach and motivate and encourage you? All right. Sometimes being a leader of a program is lonely. All right. Because you're not getting that support and that coaching and that encouragement that you're giving other people. So you've got to be able to coach yourself. And that inner speech, that voice that you have inside of your head is your internal coach. All right. I can handle this. I can do this. I can help this adult with their problem. Okay. I am safe and I can handle this. but you've got to be that internal coach. And when you do that, you turn challenges and obstacles into opportunities. And I want y'all to think about, I want y'all to reflect on past situations. Now, again, if you're taking notes right now, write this down. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. Mistakes make us better. All right? Just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you failed. All right? Mistakes are opportunities to be better. They're opportunities to learn. So, we've all made mistakes. We will all continue to make mistakes. All right? But what is important is, what did I learn from that mistake so that I don't do it again? All right? Or next time I will handle the situation differently. I want y'all to reflect back on a time that you had a challenge or you had an obstacle, and maybe the way you handled it didn't go well. It was not a successful situation, and probably created more drama and more chaos. And I want you to think about that situation and how could I have turned that into an opportunity to lead rather than viewing it as a challenge or an obstacle. All right? Challenges and obstacles are your opportunity to lead. Okay? So, reflect on that and learn from some of those past mistakes. How could I have made that an opportunity to lead? All right? Rather than just trying to manage the situation. All right? Yeah, I was just reading one of the comments right there. Y'all remember the way adults treat each other has a bigger impact on a child's self-esteem than how the adult treats the child. Okay, that's big. The way adults treat each other has a bigger impact on children's self-esteem than how the adult treats the child. All right. Now, when I do parent workshops, this is a very difficult thing for parents to hear. And I'll usually get the response of, my spouse and I fight, but we don't fight in front of the kids. It doesn't matter. All right. It doesn't matter if it's in front of the kids or not. They pick up on that. My state dictates their state. All right. So the way the adults treat each other has a huge impact on the child's self-esteem. Now, let's take that into our programs. All right. The way your employees treat each other has a bigger impact on the children's self-esteem than the way the adults treat the children. All right. That's why I put so much focus on culture. I put so much focus on being positively contagious. I put so much focus on optimism and gratitude, because that collaboration, that caring, that connection that your team has with each other has a big impact on the children in the classroom. And I have seen this so many times whenever I go into a program, that if I walk into a program, if I come visit one of your schools, and I walk into a program and there's a lot of backstabbing and a lot of gossiping and a lot of drama, amongst the staff, and it's a very dysfunctional, poisonous environment, I can almost guarantee you that you're also having classroom management issues. You're having a lot of aggressive behaviors. You're having a lot of defiance with the children. All right? And your folks are struggling with these kids. All right? Now, when I walk into a program and there's positive energy, and the teachers care about one another, and they support one another, and they encourage and they respect one another, and it's genuine and it's real, I can almost guarantee you have very little classroom management issues and a very small amount of aggressive and defiant behavior with the children. All right? It's true. It's 100% true. So, that's why culture is so incredibly important. All right? But I want you to, again, practice telling yourself this is not a challenge, this is not an obstacle, this is an opportunity for me to lead. Just like in the classroom, we tell our teachers, all behavior is an opportunity to teach. All right, when children are acting out, when children are being aggressive, all behavior is a form of communication. All behavior is an opportunity to teach. From a leadership standpoint, all right, your obstacles, your challenges are an opportunity for you to lead. All right, and so thank you, employees. You're giving me opportunities to lead. All right. And it all comes back to positive intent. What we focus on, we get more of. All right. And when we talk about leading with optimism, I want y'all to think back. And for some of you, this might be recent. For some of you, this might be way, way, way long ago in the past. But, think back of when you first got promoted into your leadership role, when you first became a director or an assistant director or whatever that leadership position was, and think back to those feelings you had on that very first day, that optimism and that hope and that energy that you had on that very first day of being a leader. You had really good vision, and those binoculars were right here, and you were looking way far into the future on where you wanted to take your program, and you were excited about it, But, sometimes we need to think back and we need to remember, what it was like when we first became a leader, okay? And especially that energy. And then you can kind of go through the progress of where you're at now, and you're like, wow, I've been given a lot of opportunities to lead in my career, and probably more opportunities than I realized that I had, to lead my program and to make a big impact on these individuals, the teachers, the customers, the community right there. And lead with faith instead of fear. All right? Know that anger is nothing but fear in disguise. So when you get angry, that's nothing but fear in disguise. All right? Your faith has to be stronger than any fear. All right? And that's why, again, we're going to have that internal coach. I can handle this situation. Okay? Your positive energy has to be greater than any negativity in your school. So if you do have some conflict, and y'all, you're going to, all right? You're going to have some negativity. You're going to have some conflict. You're going to have the pot stirs, all right? You want to keep it to a bare minimum, but y'all, we're human. It's going to happen. But your positivity has to be greater than any negativity in your school. And that's how you remove negativity, all right? Remember, my state influences your state, okay? So if I have a negative person that comes into my school, their negative attitude is going to influence others to be negative. And y'all all know this. Y'all have seen it, where you have one employee that comes in a bad mood, and the next thing you know, the entire staff is in a bad mood, because that negative influence is so strong. So your positive energy has to be stronger than that negative energy, so that your positive energy will be the influence, not the negative. All right. And then, you definitely need to approach that person with your positive energy. Hey, your body is saying that you're not yourself today. You seem to be a little stressed, or you seem to be a little upset. Let's chat. What can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? All right. But again, your face, your body is telling me that something's off today. You seem distracted. You seem upset. How can I help you? All right. And these are words. And use the word seem. You seem angry. You seem stressed. You seem upset. All right. That's noticing. When you use the word seem, that is a noticing statement. If I were to say you are angry, you are stressed, that's judgment. Okay. And judgment will throw somebody into their survival state. That's not going to be helpful. Okay. So you seem stressed. How can I help you? How can I support you? All right. Sherry, 40 years as a director, and she still has passion. High five to Sherry. Good job. Good job. And, know why you're in it. Know why you're in it. Okay. We've talked about connecting with your team already. Connected teams beat talent. You can have talented teachers in your program all day long, but if that team isn't connected, all right, talent isn't going to get you anywhere. All right, connected teams create success. All right, negativity, busyness, and stress will destroy your team quicker than anything. So that's why we have to immediately address this. When you do have an employee that is toxic, all right, and they are stirring the pot, that needs to be immediately addressed. All right, don't sit there and think, well, let me give it an hour or so, maybe she'll change her tone. I really am not in the mood to deal with this right now, so maybe she'll change. All right. No, the only person you can change is yourself. The only person you can change is yourself. But when we change ourselves, we influence others. Okay. But when you do have that situation, it needs to be immediately addressed. And again, remember the difference between a leader and a manager right there. All right. And be that encourager. All right. We need more encouragement in our lives for sure. All right. Moving on right here. Moving on. Let's talk about, we're going to shift gears now. Carol's saying, I use the new school year to reevaluate me. I think everyone needs to do that. And another reason why I wanted to do this topic at the beginning of the school year, because I think that we all need to do some self-reflecting. I know that within our organization, we did basically a form of strategic planning over the last 6 months, where again, we put a big focus on our team, our school family, and what we stood for, what our beliefs and values were, what is our end game, what is our focus and our goal. I thought it was important to do this right now because with the pandemic, and not just the pandemic, but we've got the pandemic, we had the riots last summer, we had the election, the politics. I mean, there was so much stuff that we've dealt with over the last 18 months. I felt it was very important that we refocused our attention, and we needed to do some strategic planning to get back on track, because I think all of us have been extremely distracted by all of the chaos that is going on in our world. And for so many people and so many programs, the focus has been lost because of all of this negativity. All right, so let's work together and let's come up with reestablish what we stand for, reestablish what our vision is, what our mission is, and get everyone back on the same page. And what we found doing it, and it kind of goes right back to Carol's comment, and I heard this from so many of my leaders, that they were able to do a lot of self-reflecting on themselves. And we had so many conversations, and many of them were tearful conversations about, they didn't even realize how unfocused and distracted they were. But it put things into perspective, and it's been very, very helpful. And especially now that we're dealing with some new challenges out there. All right, let's talk about working with some difficult employees. Now remember, these difficult employees are creating opportunities for us to lead. All right, but there's 6 different types of difficult employees that I want to mention right here and talk about. So 6 different types of of difficult employees, and I'll try to type these into the chat screen because, by the way, you're going to see this again when you do your online worksheet. One of the questions is going to be, what are the 6 types of difficult employees? So I'm going to help y'all out here. And of course, the first difficult employee is the negative employee, the pessimistic, the cynical, the unenthusiastic employee, the uncooperative employee. All right. Now, we've already kind of talked about this individual. They need to be immediately addressed because their emotional state will influence others' emotional state. And most importantly, that negative employee, that pessimistic employee, is having a big impact on the children that they're working with. Because remember earlier at the beginning, I said, when we're working with adults, my state influences your state. But when we're working with children, my state dictates their state. So if I have a negative employee going into a classroom, all right, they're transferring that negative emotion into their children. And we definitely don't want that right there. We've had a lot of conversation over the years and different trainings about, is it possible to change a negative person to a positive person? Can you make someone positively contagious? All right. Now, remember, the only person you can change is yourself. All right. You can't change other people. They have to be willing to change. Okay. They have to be willing to change, and they have to make the choice to change. You can't make them change. All right. But I can influence them. I can give them the tools they need so that they can make that decision to change, and they can have that willingness to change. So when we ask the question, is it possible for a negative person to become a positive person? The answer is yes and no. All right. Some people may appear to be negative, but we just haven't connected with them the way they need to be connected to. All right. I always recommend, Gary Chapman's 5 Languages of Love. Are you showing appreciation with their love language? All right. Whatever that may be, if it's quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, but are you meeting their love language? And when we connect with them, that could influence the willingness to change and to get them to be positive. I've also had situations where, I was so frustrated with a negative employee, but then when I removed some other people from the group, this negative employee became positive because they were so easily influenced by the people around them. Okay, so that person might be negative because of the people that are around them. All right, so we got to get some more positive people around them. Instead of pessimistic people, we need optimistic people, and that can influence their willingness to change. Now, the problem with this is that the negative influence that this person may be experiencing could be at home, not in the workplace. And the outside voices that they have in their life is coming into your program, all right? The negative environment, the negative lifestyle that they have at home is impacting your program. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. Now we can provide community resources. We can provide, some opportunities for counseling or some life coaching, those type of skills. But, that might be helpful. But, they might be getting that negative influence at home. That is a great opportunity when we talk about, opportunities to lead, that, what we offer to others, we strengthen within ourselves. All right. So practicing with this person to be optimistic in the classroom, to practice gratitude in the classroom, to be positively contagious in the classroom when working with the children. And when we offer that to others, we strengthen it within ourselves. So that could be very helpful to that person, not only at your school, but in their personal life too. Now, you may have some people that seem to be negative, and they have unresolved trauma. And they've had a traumatic experience in their life that has not been properly dealt with. So they may not mentally have the ability to be willing to change. All right. Until that trauma is dealt with, they don't have the mental ability to make that change. And you could have some people out there that they may not even be aware of the unresolved trauma that they have in their life, and so you could run into those types of situations too. But again, we provide a positive culture, a caring culture. You could actually be helping this person more than you realize. All right. The martyr. We got, the next difficult employee that we have here is that martyr. That poor me attitude. They always feel singled out. They're the victim. They like to blame others. We have a lot of people that we work with that are just victims, and they always have this poor me attitude. Why is this happening to me? All right. Well, this is a person that needs to be held accountable. All right. And they need constant feedback, both affirmation and constructive feedback. All right. That they are responsible for their actions, not other people. All right. And when they do start blaming other people, all right, that's where we're going to focus on, the only person that can, you can't allow other people to stress you out. You have to be in control right there. All right. And those that you put in charge of your feelings, you put in charge of yourself. So if you're allowing other people to make you stressed or sad or angry, you're putting them in control of yourself. And this is big with the martyrs. All right. That's where the blame comes from. But they need a lot of practice with accountability. All right. Now, another way we're going to handle these situations is celebrations. All right. You were responsible for a milestone that happened in this classroom. You contributed to a success in the school, and we're going to celebrate your part of this success. We're going to celebrate your part of this milestone. So once again, what we focus on, we get more of. So instead of focusing on the blame and what other people made me do, all right, focus on the positive things. A lot of times when I've worked with martyrs, I always encourage them to keep a journal, keep a classroom journal. And so anytime you do have a success in the classroom, journal it. You had a child that reached a milestone. Journal it, just one quick paragraph. You don't have to write a book, just a real quick paragraph about the success. When a parent gives you a compliment, journal it, all right? When another employee gives you a compliment, when your director gives you affirmation, journal it, all right? And build this journal right here of your successes and your accomplishments and your praises. And then when they do get that poor me attitude, or everybody is against me type of attitude, go back and read your journal. All right. Go back and reflect on your successes, your accomplishments, your praises. And this has been very, very helpful for this person right here. All right. Then we've got our complainers, and I know for me, this is one of my triggers right here. Remember, I told you I'll write down your triggers. The complainers and the whiners, all right? And I'm not talking about the whiners, I'm talking about the whining people right there. But the ones that are always griping, that they're insubordinate, that they're defiant, these type of people right here. And we tend to have a lot of these complaining and whining types of difficult people right there. One thing that I want you to understand with the complainers and the whiners is that there's only two states of being, all right? You're either calling for love or you're extending love, all right? You're either calling for love or you're extending love. When you are meeting an expectation, all right, when you're meeting an expectation, you're extending love. When you're not meeting an expectation, when you are whining and complaining, you're calling for love. So what these whiners and complainers need is understanding. They need someone that can actively listen to them, all right, understand their concerns, all right, and be there for them. That's what they need, all right? And have a no complaining rule. If you feel like you've got a lot of complainers or whiners in your school, I'm going to put this on the chat screen. There is a book. Oh, I'm sorry, I just misspelled that, but I'm talking and typing at the same time. The no complaining rule, written by John Gordon, is a wonderful book. If you feel like you've got a lot of whiners and complainers in your program, check out that book right there. It's a quick, easy read, so it's not a novel, but we're going to turn complaints into solutions. So when you're working with that complainer and that whiner, hey, you know what? What type of solutions can you suggest? Whatever it is that you're complaining about, let's work together on a solution. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And these people, like I said, they need understanding, but they also need the opportunity to be involved. All right. It's kind of like a seeking attention type thing. All right. And just like in the classroom, when we're dealing with tattling, when you have a child that comes and tattles, are you telling me this to be helpful or hurtful? All right. And you can kind of use the same language with your complainers and whiners. Are you telling me this to be helpful or hurtful? All right. If you want to be helpful, let's work together and let's talk about some possible solutions. All right. But get them involved. Get them involved. The next difficult employee that we tend to work with is the know-it-all. All right. That person that has the superior attitude, the arrogant, the egotistical attitude, and they are never, never wrong. Y'all know these people. Yes. So, I always tell the story. I had a teacher that worked for me, and she worked for me for a really, really long time. And she was absolutely amazing. Probably one of the best, preschool teachers I've ever worked with in my career. She really was amazing. The problem is that she was amazing and she knew it. And her ego was bigger than her classroom. And from time to time, we had to kind of knock her off her pedestal because she did not work well with others because she had this superior attitude and this arrogance and this ego. It made it very, very difficult for other people to work with her. So we had to have a lot of difficult conversations about her arrogance and her know-it-all attitude. We always need to be humble and hungry, for new skills and new ways of doing things. So, no matter how long you've been doing this, there's always going to be a better way. All right. And we should always be seeking that better way and ways to improve our program. So with the know-it-alls, getting them involved and that right there, you know what? We need to come up with some new practices. We need to come up with some new techniques in some of the classrooms. Will you help me with that? Will you help me think outside of the box and come up with some new strategies that might be helpful in some of the classrooms? Because we got to get them to realize that they don't know it all in a nice, subtle way. But, getting them involved right there is definitely helpful. Then we've got the, sorry, and again, apologize for my misspelling. It's hard to type and talk. The passive aggressive individual. So they're submissive, they're meek, they can be silent, they avoid conflict, and they avoid responsibility. This right here is also a difficult person that can be working with. They're hot and cold, hot and cold. You never know from one day to the next what you're going to be getting out of them. I have found in my experience that the passive aggressive type of employee will tend to become the wallflower. They tend to be the difficult employees that you kind of forget about. All right. And they need, equal amount of attention right there for them. So once again, connect with their love language. How do they like appreciation? Is it again? On the positive and the contagious and the gratitude part of their job. We want them to be assertive, not passive aggressive. All right. This person right here, the passive aggressive difficult employee, is an individual that usually is dealing with a lot of self-worth issues. They don't value themselves too much, so they need some coaching on their own worth and their own contribution and their own values right there. All right. Hey, I see a couple of people are saying that there are some connection issues or it froze right there. Everything appears to be okay on my end right now. I did not mention this at the beginning of the webinar, y'all, but it's very, very common that we have these type of issues because of the live stream and with the internet. It is what it is, the power of acceptance right here. If you did miss something, this is being recorded, so you can always go back and watch and listen once again. So like I said, if you missed something right here, you can go back on the recording. But my best advice to give you when we do have connection issues is to just be patient and breathe. All right. Because it's not a if this happens, it's going to be a when this happens, because it happens all the time. And I also forgot to tell y'all at the beginning of the workshop, oops, I made a mistake, that it's always a good idea to make sure you have all other applications closed on your computer or device. So you're not running ProCare in the background or whatever it is. The more things you have running on your computer, it messes with the connectivity and the streaming of the video. So that's another piece of advice I normally give. All right, let's talk about the last difficult employee that we tend to work with, and that is the hostile and aggressive employee. That employee that is pushy and demanding and argumentative, and they can sometimes be prone to some violent behavior right there. Now, this person may not need to be in your program. All right. This is a person that needs to be dealt with quickly and swiftly. They could be very toxic, and we talked at the beginning of the workshop about creating that sense of safety, and people have to feel safe in order to meet expectations. And if you have an employee that is hostile and aggressive, that is going to defeat your purpose, and you're not going to be able to create a sense of safety from other people's point of view if you have this hostile, aggressive type of employee. All right. So these people, you need to kind of have a zero tolerance for them, and they got to go. All right. And we definitely don't want, these people around our children. Okay. Now, just some additional tips for working with difficult employees. Lots of feedback, lots of open and honest feedback. All right. And I have found it to be very helpful that when I need to have a conversation with someone, to say, hey, we need to have a difficult conversation, and kind of give them advance notice. Hey, we need to have a difficult conversation. That kind of prepares them emotionally for the news that is about to come. But I have found that if I tell an employee, hey, sit down, we need to have a difficult conversation, that it makes it easier for me to have this conversation and to give that feedback. All right. But y'all, this is something else I talk about in so many of my workshops. Open communication is the key to success. 99% of your problems can either be solved or avoided with simple communication. All right. That's all it takes is being open and honest and communicating with people, all right? And not, sweeping it under the rug or not saying anything and hoping that it eventually goes away, all right? That communication is key. And again, if you're taking notes, this is something I encourage you to write down. The leader should always be the first to speak. Don't wait for the employee or the customer to come to you. You always go to them first, all right? You should always be the first to speak. Hey, we need to talk about something. We need to have a conversation, all right? Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable and give them the tools. So don't just tell them that they're being difficult or that they're toxic or causing problems in the program. Give them the tools they need to be successful. Here are some things that we can practice to help turn this around. Because here's something else I have definitely learned in my career working with difficult employees. 9 times out of 10, they don't realize they're difficult. They don't think there's anything wrong with their behavior until we bring it up, all right? So, addressing this sooner than later is very important because most of the time they don't even know that they're being difficult, all right? Change your reaction, all right? We want to respond to these individuals, not react. So once again, that goes back to your composure. So when you're walking into this conversation and we need to work with this difficult employee, you're already internally coaching yourself. We're going to do a lot of breathing, all right? We're going to take a lot of deep breaths during this conversation. And not only is this helping us maintain composure, but we're downloading calm. And it's going to help them remain calm during this difficult conversation. So we don't want to react, we want to respond. All right? Now remember, once again, what we focus on, we get more of. So focus on the positive. All right? So when you have this conversation, don't just address the negative behavior, but you want to make sure that you throw out there that they've got some positive contributions. They've got some meaningful contributions in the school. Make sure you bring those things up, all right? And then we can address the conflict. And then after you have this conversation with them, move on, all right? Don't hold a grudge. Don't hold it against them, all right? We want to help them. I wanted to share with you something that I like to call the DUIRR technique. And once again, you might want to write this down because you might see this on the worksheet later on at the end of the webinar. So there are 5 steps to the DUIRR technique. All right, so step number 1 is we're going to determine your involvement. So determine your involvement. So how involved do I need to be in this situation right here? And it might be that you're not the one that should be addressing this person. If you've got 2 employees that are having a conflict with each other, they need to have a conversation with each other. And it might be that you're just a mediator, all right, between the 2 individuals. So determine your involvement right there. Am I going to be an active listener and listen to what they have to say? Am I going to be a coach? Am I going to be a leader or am I going to be a manager? All right. And so most of the time we're going to be that coach. All right. We're going to be that coach right there. Step number 2 is to understand. All right. Now, I've said this quite a bit in today's workshop. You have to be able to see the world from other people's point of view. You have to be able to see the world from other people's version of reality. That's so important, especially right now in the world we're living in. Being able to respect and cooperate with one another. I've got to be able to understand that person and understand their version of reality. This is so incredibly important when you're working with your families. If you've got an upset parent, you've got a parent that's got a concern or a complaint about something that's happened in your school, you've got to be able to understand that person. All right. See the situation from their point of view. All right. Then I can help this person. I can help this person. Step number 3, we've already talked about this quite a bit in today's workshop, but we're going to influence his or her attitude, or we're going to influence the way they see this situation. And so again, the culture, the composure, the positive intent, seeing people through loving eyes, knowing that the only person I can change is myself. And when I change myself, I influence others. All right. And that can influence their attitude right there. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you've made a mistake. There is nothing wrong with admitting that, you know what, I was wrong about something. That shows that you're human. All right. And when you do admit and you have ownership of your actions and ownership of your mistakes, that influences others. All right. Because if as a leader, I am strong enough to be able to say, oops, I made a mistake. Let's look at this from a different perspective, or let's practice a different skill. All right. If I'm strong enough to be able to say, oops, I made a mistake, we need to practice a different way, then that's going to influence your team to do the same. All right. So that they are strong enough to be able to say, oops, I made a mistake. I need to practice a different skill. All right. So that is number 3 right there. Then we're going to resolve the problem. All right. We're going to resolve the problem right there and come up with a solution. Come up with a solution that will be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. All right. It's not about taking her side, taking his side. It's not about doing things his way or her way. It's about resolving the problem and coming up with a solution that will mutually benefit all parties involved. Most importantly, coming up with a solution that is in the best interest of the children. And use those words. All right. Whether it's a parent, whether it's an employee that you're working with, we're going to come up with a solution that is in the best interest of the children. All right. And then the last one is to recover and move on. All right. Recover and move on. Don't hold these situations over people's heads forever and ever. Okay. I don't want to go into performance improvement plans. I have a whole separate webinar that we've done in the past on performance improvement plans. If you haven't watched that webinar, you can find it on my website, timthetrainer.com. You can also go to Facebook and go to videos, and you can find the video that we did on performance improvement plans. But kind of go back and review that. Our job as a leader is to help people improve. All right. We have to be involved in their improvement. You can't just write somebody up and tell them you're not meeting an expectation and you've got to fix this within 30 days. All right. You need to be involved in their improvement. They want you to be involved in their improvement. Okay. And again, you can watch that video. I got a question. Can we stop for a potty break? And because she doesn't want to miss anything. Because these are short 3-hour webinars, I typically don't take a potty break. I usually just tell you that if you need to go rush and flush, go take care of yourself. Really quickly right there. Now if you have a mobile device, if you're watching this on your phone or tablet, you just take your phone or tablet into the bathroom with you. Don't tell us though, because we don't want to know that, all right? But if you're on your computer, you can't do that, obviously. Definitely you want to definitely go take care of yourself right there. So Beverly, if you need to go rush and flush, really quick. I'll just we'll talk about something that is relevant, but not necessarily part of the material, so that you don't feel like you're missing anything. So you can go rush and flush right there. All right. Rushing and flushing. There you go. Good job. Good job right there. Y'all know tomorrow, please wash your hands too, yes. And y'all know what Greg the chemical guy always says, 8 out of 10 cell phones have fecal matter on them, is what the studies say right there. So, when you take your phone into the bathroom, make sure you clean that sucker off, because who knows what's living on that phone. That's kind of nasty right there. Speaking of which, tomorrow I am doing another Facebook Live on current health practices and preventing the spread of illnesses. So if you have employees that are able to jump on tomorrow, we're going to put a big focus on health practices in the classroom and preventing the spread of illness. Once again, with this variant that is going on right now, it's rapidly spreading. It's spreading in a completely different way. The scariest part about this new variant is it is hitting children a lot harder than the COVID-19 that we dealt with last year. So making sure that we're not complacent, that we're not letting our guard down, that we are still following enhanced health practices, that is so incredibly important. And once again, I don't know how many of y'all have after school programs, and depending on what area of the state you're in, we're having some issues right now with some of our public schools having some very relaxed protocols when it comes to exposures, the children that are in classrooms that are exposed to a positive person. And it's very different than how Health and Human Services are regulating us. So, those health practices that we're putting in place in our after-school programs is critical right now, because with the number of elementary schools that we service and the number of classrooms at each elementary school, the risk of exposure and spreading illnesses in our after-school programs is just crazy right now. So yes. And RSV, so y'all know that there is a connection between RSV and COVID. They are from the same family, all right? And so that's why nationwide we are having a huge amount of situations with RSV, not just in young children, but adults. You rarely hear about an adult being diagnosed with RSV. But we're hearing about it right now. There is a connection between RSV and the COVID. They come from the same family. So, again, if you're having this in your program, again, those enhanced health practices are going to be very important right there, and following your protocols for illness exclusion. But we'll talk about all of that stuff tomorrow. Yeah, and Erica, I love how you worded your comment. For 2 weeks now, I've been having a lot of conversations with some regulatory agencies about what is the difference between a requirement, a recommendation, and a suggestion. And no one can seem to officially answer that question. Are you giving me a requirement? Are you giving me a recommendation? Or are you giving me a suggestion? And so, when you are working with your health departments, listen for those words. All right. What are they telling you? A requirement, a recommendation, or a suggestion? And then use that however you feel necessary. All right, we've talked about culture. We've talked about building that teamwork. Really quickly, some tips for better teamwork. Make sure that your commitments and your expectations are clear so that everyone understands them. Remember, we all have different interpretations. We all have different versions of reality. So when we are setting goals or we're making commitments, make sure that they are clear and understandable. I prefer, welcome back, yay. I prefer to use the word commitment instead of goal. All right. New Year's on January 1st, we're going to make some New Year's resolutions and we're going to set some goals for the year. Usually by the second week of January, you're eating that chocolate bar and whatever. But if we say we're going to make commitments this year, just saying the word, commitment versus goal makes a big difference right there. Clarify who is responsible for what. A big characteristic of the generation of workers that we have right now is that it's very important to them that expectations are clearly defined and that everyone is aware of each other's expectations. All right. So who in your program is responsible for what? And especially if you have multiple leaders in your program, so you have a director, you have an assistant director, you have a director, you have a director of education, whatever you call your leaders in your program, make sure that your employees know who is responsible for what, all right? The expectations of each individual person. I promise that's water, not vodka, all right? That's later. Group discussions. The more connections you can create in your program, the better off you're going to be. Keep your people connected. Have those group discussions. I've already told you, communicate. Stay fully informed, all right? Build that trust. And you have to build trust. Trust and respect is not automatically given. It has to be built, all right? So build that trust. You know how you build trust? You keep your word, all right? When you tell someone that you're going to do something, do it, all right? Keep your word. That's going to build trust. The number one reason why trust is lost is by people not following through. People not keeping their word. When we're talking about the children, all right, whether it's the parent or the teacher, all right, if you tell them you're going to do something, you need to do it, all right, you have to follow through, All right. Otherwise, we're going to lose that trust right there. Now in the past, 10 years ago, if you were in one of my management workshops, I would probably tell you to avoid interpersonal relationships, doing things with your employees after hours. That's kind of changed these days. Having that connection and knowing them on a personal level really helps with the sense of safety. Now, I'm not telling you to become their best friend, but try to be connected with them on a personal level a little. All right. So being aware of what's going on in their personal life, being aware of their struggles or their accomplishments in their personal life, and then celebrating or supporting them as needed right there. All right. Empower your employees. All right. Get them involved. Get them involved in the strategies that you have in your program. And especially those of you that are newer managers and leaders, you've got to be fair and consistent. You've got to be fair and consistent. One thing that I always encourage you to do, as a leader of your program, you need to know your policies backwards and forwards. All right, your employee handbook, your parent handbook, your tuition policies. All right, you should be able to quote those word for word. So study your policy manuals. Study the minimum standards. Y'all might wonder, why does Tim do so many trainings on the child care minimum standards? It's not that I am not obsessed with the standards, y'all. I do so many trainings on minimum standards because you need to know them. You need to be able to quote them word for word, all right? That way you can be fair and consistent with all of your employees, your customers, and people that you work with. And you hold everyone accountable to the same expectation. All right. I had a phone call yesterday from someone. I got to be discreet here because I don't know if you're on the webinar. And she kind of made a comment about, I don't want to read that minimum standards book. I'm only going to be doing blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you need to read that book cover to cover, and you need to not only read it, you need to study it. All right. That book is important. All right. And because we are so heavily regulated, when we talk about management techniques and leadership skills, you need to know your stuff. All right. And that confidence and having that confidence in yourself. All right. There you go. Erica said, because it's so much fun to memorize it. Well, when you just practice these expectations and you practice these skills, you eventually just memorize it. All right. So yes. And y'all, even though I do all of these trainings, and, I have a 4-day class I do, and most of that 4-day class is about minimum standards. Y'all, I still have to look things up from time to time. All right. So, you're never going to know it 100%. But, if there is something that I'm like, hang on just 1 second, I'll look it up. All right. Or if I'm second guessing myself, look it up right there. We have a very large task, especially right now, of keeping our staff motivated. And a big role of leadership is motivation. All right. Now, I kind of talked at the beginning of who motivates you. Where do you get your encouragement from? Some of us, we get motivated when we motivate others. And that is our motivation, is motivating others. That's because, like I said, what you offer to others, you strengthen within yourself. So when we motivate others, we're internally motivating ourselves. All right. So, find out, why each employee comes to work. All right. What is their passion? What is their purpose? Now, remember, I said earlier, people don't get burned out because of the job that they do. They get burned out because they forget why they do it. So have these conversations with your employees on why do they work here? Why do they work in early education? What makes them a proud early educator? All right. And then that way, when you know why they do what they do, when you start to see them slipping, all right, then that's your opportunity to have a conversation about their passion and purpose. And do you remember when you told me that, the reason why you wanted to be a pre-K teacher is that you remembered, your pre-K teacher that you had as a child and what a big influence she was on you. And still to this day, you can remember that pre-K teacher and the impact that she had on your life. Do you remember telling me that? Let's talk about that again, and that's going to help bring them back. All right. So, find out why they do what they do. Always encourage your employees to propose new ideas. I'll be the first person to admit, I am not shy about this at all, that most of the successes that I have had in my career, most of the successes that we have had in our schools, the unique and awesome things that we do in our programs were not my ideas. All right. Some of them were, but not all of them. But you want to empower your staff to be able to propose new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of practicing skills. And because we have such a large amount of responsibility as a leader, and we have so many tasks that we have to get accomplished, we need our employees to be the daydream believers and the ones that can recognize that it's time to practice a new skill, or it's time to do something different, or there is a different need in the community right now. So encourage them to propose new ideas. And like I said earlier, be part of the solution, not part of the problem. All right. But there's some really cool stuff happening out there right now. And I remember, one of my mentors saying one time, sometimes you have to be willing to adapt or you get left behind. And if you don't adapt, you're most likely going to be left behind. So, are there some new ideas out there that it's time for you to adapt? Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust while your competitors are taking off. All right. But most of the time, it's your teachers, it's your employees that have these amazing ideas that can make your program better. All right. Encourage them to have solutions. Whenever they come to you with a problem, I had suggested the no complaining rule by John Gordon earlier. He talks about in that book that anytime you come into the office with a complaint, you need to also come with 3 possible solutions. All right. And that's going to help them understand, the way you're doing things might be the best way. It might be the only way. Or they might come in with a really good solution that you haven't thought of, So always encourage them to have solutions available, whenever they come to you with a problem. All right. I think humor is probably one of the biggest characteristics to motivating your staff. Our early education programs and our after-school programs should be a joyful place. They should be full of laughter. All right. They should be full of smiles. And humor is what's going to bring those laughter and the smiles. Now, don't offend. So that's where you've got to be careful because your humor cannot be offensive. All right. But have fun and be a fun leader. All right. Right there. And so, and encourage them to have fun. I'm right there. Celebrate those successes. And like I said, don't wait for the big success to celebrate. Celebrate the small things. All right. I had a director tell me one time she called me up and she said, Mr. Tim, I need to talk to you. I'm so frustrated right now. And I said, uh-oh, what's going on? She goes, oh, I just don't know what to do. I need help. We had 3 people late for work this morning. And I was like, oh my goodness. What I'm hearing you say is that you had 29 employees that came to work on time today. Well, no, I had 3 people that were late. Yes, but you also had 29 employees that came on time. Let's celebrate those 29 employees that showed up on time and not the 3 people that came in late. All right. So shift your focus right there, but celebrate those wins. And it might be a day that they all came to work on time. Celebrate. All right. Y'all know there's certain things we're never ever supposed to talk about. Like don't ever speak this into the universe. Like today is Friday and we've gone all week with no biting. Well, you're going to have 3 bites this afternoon or 5 bites next week. All right. But that would be a celebration. If we can go a whole week without biting, yes, we're going to have some celebrations right there. Stomp out the gossip mongers. So when you do have that negative person, address them immediately. That's going to help motivate the other staff because we don't want them to be an influence right there. Training and professional development is motivating. So if you see that your team is kind of down in the dumps and kind of sliding, it might be a good opportunity for you to do some professional development, do some training. That's going to be motivating right there. Be an active participant. Be great. Being great is contagious. All right. I love that quote right there. Being great is contagious. When you're a great leader, you will influence great teachers. When you have great teachers, they will influence great students. All right. So be contagious and be there for your staff. All right. I want to talk now about some staff supervision. So, Stephanie's saying that they get together for game night at her house once a month just for fun. I love that. That is so fantastic. I know of a school that she literally went 3 years without having to hire a new teacher. They had 0 turnover at this particular school for 3 years. And it was a wonderful, wonderful group of people that the collaboration and the caring and the connection was really, really cool. Well, I found out that, they got together once a month and went out to dinner as a group. Everyone paid their own way. It wasn't a company sponsored thing. If people weren't able to come, they weren't able to come. No big deal. But generally, every single person showed up for their monthly out to dinner night. And this school, they just had that connection even outside. And they had a very strict rule that when they did their monthly out to dinner thing, there was no work talk, no talking about the school. They were just there to connect and have fun and celebrate one another. And, like I said, they went 3 years with no turnover of staff. And so that's pretty cool stuff right there. All right. So shifting gears now. So for many, many years, we had a lot of problems with supervision of children. And we had a very high number of incidents in the state of Texas where child care programs were placed on corrective action or closed down due to neglectful supervision of children. Then we got better. And we went through a period of time where we were seeing less supervision incidents and our children were safer, and we were doing well. All of a sudden, over the last couple of years, we're declining again, and we're starting to see more supervision issues, neglectful supervision, children being injured, and programs that are being placed on corrective action or closed down due to supervision incidents. So, I think it raises a really good question of why were we doing better and what has changed over the last couple of years, and we're now having supervision incidents again. I have my opinion on why we're starting to see this happening again. I have a love-hate relationship with the applications for parent communication. So, you have tablets in your classrooms so that your teachers can communicate with the families, with the ProCare Connect or the Kid Reports or the Hi Mama or the Bright Wheels, or there's so many of these applications that are out there that are very, very popular. And that instant gratification, that instant communication with the family, the ability to share pictures, all of this stuff, is very popular right now. I believe, and especially based on some of the cases that I have worked on, that some of our teachers are more focused on those tablets and that parent communication than they are the kids. And that's why we're seeing an increase in supervision incidents. While that parent communication is important, the health and safety of the children should always be your number one concern. And making sure that the children are safe is a priority over that tablet. All right. I believe that's one of the reasons why we're having this increase. But we had an incident here in Texas a few years ago that made national news. So it wasn't just on the local TV stations, but it made national news, where there was an infant teacher that originally was accused of abusing one infant. By the time it was all over, she ended up getting charged with, I think it was 8 counts of child endangerment. So 8 different families came forward and said this particular teacher abused their child. And it was a really, really bad situation. And this happened over the course of many years. All right. I was reading an article in the newspaper, and it was a very difficult article to read because they were talking about, if this lady has abused all of these kids, over the course of many years, and if she got charged with 8 counts of child endangerment, y'all, there were more than 8 kids. Okay, those are just the 8 that they knew about. All right. But they were talking about if she had been abusing these kids for all these years, someone had to have known that this behavior was happening. Some other employee had to have known that this person had this abusive behavior or personality. And then I was reading this newspaper article, and it went on to say, where was the director? Why didn't the director know that these things were happening. And that was difficult because, again, being a director, being an operator, and working in this business since 1987, I know that there are some people that are very good at getting away with stuff, that they know where the blind spots are on the cameras. They know when they are and are not being watched. They know when they can get away with stuff. There's people that are like that, But then on the other hand, I had to agree with the newspaper. Where was the director? Why didn't the director know that these behaviors were going on? So, putting a big focus on staff supervision is critical. As a leader of your program, as a manager of your program, your presence has to be known. All right. And it's not that we're trying to catch employees doing something wrong. It's being present enough to acknowledge when they're doing things right. All right. But when your presence is known, all right, they're more willing to meet the expectations. All right. So, I really want y'all to reflect on this and is your presence known in the classroom, and what techniques do you practice to ensure that your staff are being properly supervised? All right. Now, some of you may have cameras. I am a big fan of cameras in the classroom, absolutely, for surveillance purposes only. I'm not a fan of parent access. That's a whole different story. But y'all know that watching cameras, you get a different perspective. All right. Sometimes those cameras can send false messages. All right. They can be very helpful, but they can also be very hurtful. Don't rely on the camera footage to be your only source of staff supervision. All right. But they can. And like I said, people can figure out where the blind spots are, where they can't be seen on the camera. Those are helpful. But, one of the techniques that I always recommend is to do what I like to call half-hour ratio checks, or as often as possible. A member of management, so the director, assistant director, whoever it is in your world, goes into the classroom and you document how many children, how many adults are in that room at that time. Of course, this is going to be good to help keep you in ratio. It's going to help you with staffing patterns. All right. So when you're scheduling your people, it's going to help you see those staffing patterns. But it's your opportunity to get in the classroom and be present. All right. And don't just stand at the door and go, how many? Actually walk in to that classroom, step into that classroom and take a temperature, do a temperature check. And I'm not talking about the temperature checks that we've been doing for the last 18 months at the front door. Go into that classroom and what is the energy of the classroom? All right. Is it calm? Is it fun? Is there laughter? Are the kids smiling? Or do you step in and it's chaos? Are you walking into that classroom and the children look anxious? The children look frustrated? That is your cue to, I need to support this teacher. All right. Or you walk in and that teacher is a little bit frazzled. All right. Hey, your face is saying you need some help right now. What can I do to help you out? All right. But don't just walk in there, how many kids, how many adults, and then turn around and walk out. Take a temperature check. All right. But I always am like, look at the kids and what is the mood of the children? All right. If they seem frustrated, if they seem anxious, if they seem timid, that means we've got a teacher that's about to blow. All right. And we need to support that teacher or give her some assistance. Okay. But that's very helpful right there. I love doing half-hour ratio checks too, because sometimes I'll walk in with the little clipboard and my pen and the kids will go 7, they're usually more accurate than the teacher is right there. But it also makes me aware of what's going on in the classroom too. So I can have good conversations with the parents. So when mom comes in to pick up, hey mom, make sure you look at Laura's artwork that she did today. Man, Laura has got an amazing eye. I see a future artist in the future. And that parent's going to go, wow, out of 200 kids, that director knows what my child did today. That's going to make a big difference in, that trust that you have with that parent. And I know that being a director, being a leader, you're very busy. You've got a lot of responsibilities. You've got a lot of things to do. And when we get busy and stressed, the classrooms are usually the first to get neglected. All right. Doing these half-hour ratio checks will force you to get up and go walk around the building. All right. And then again, go in and out of those classrooms. And it's good documentation. I've had cases where programs were placed on corrective action with licensing, and licensing has come back and asked, how can you prove that the director was properly supervising the staff? What type of documentation do you have that will show me that the director was properly supervising the staff? All right. And I've seen this in many investigations. Having that half-hour ratio check where you can say, here is my documentation that I walk this building every 30 minutes. I go in and out of every classroom every 30 minutes or every hour, whatever works best in your situation. And that documentation has been critical, all right, in some of these situations. And I understand, it may not happen every 30 minutes. Life happens. I get it. I know what reality is like, but as often as possible. All right. And it's going to force you to move around that program and go in and out. All right. And like I said, when you see that the body language of those kids and teachers, that means we got to fix this. Another thing, and this is something else that's really important to me, is that when you're walking around your building and you're doing your ratio checks or whatever, and let's say it's 11:22 a.m. right now, before you walk into that classroom, look on that lesson plan, look on that daily schedule. What does that daily schedule, what does that lesson plan say should be happening at 11:22 a.m.? And then when you walk into that classroom, is that what's happening? All right. And if it says from 11:15 to 11:30 is circle time, and I walk in and circle time isn't happening, all right. Hey, teacher, your daily schedule says that you should be in circle time right now. What's up? Why aren't we following our schedule? We need to keep them on track right there too. And y'all do know that is in the minimum standards, is that you have a schedule that is followed. All right. And I have seen programs cited for this in the past. All right. Oh, thank you, Amanda. That was kind. One of the best ideas that they've gotten from me. Yeah. And I was going to say something, I lost my train of thought. So make sure that we're doing that and that we're following those schedules and those routines. That's very, very critical. And, another situation, and I know I've told this story to some of you in the past, but I know of a program that the director was walking the building one day, walked by a 3-year-old classroom, saw a child sitting at a table crying. So she stuck her head in the door and said, "Hey, teacher, why is Johnny crying?" I don't know. He's been crying all day, you know. All right. So this director decided to go ahead and come into the classroom, walk into the classroom, go over to the child, hey, you've got tears coming down your face and you're holding your head. Something happened. What happened? And the little boy says, "Oh, the teacher hit me in the back of the head." And the director's like, "Whoa, what?" And she turns to the teacher and says, "He just said you hit him in the back of the head." I did not hit him in the back of the head. I don't know why he would say that, you know? So the director's like, okay, takes the child, gets him, nurtures him, gets him cleaned up, gets him a little ice pack, takes care of him, and then immediately goes to the office and pulls up the video cameras. Now, in this situation, there was no sound. It was just a video. And I actually watched the video myself. And it appeared that this child was just sitting at the table doing a manipulative, didn't seem to be doing anything out of the ordinary. And this teacher just walked right behind him and went, bam, and just knocked him in the back of the head. And of course, the director's like, "Oh my gosh," So she immediately pulls the teacher in and says, "Hey, I just wanted to follow up. I wanted to ask you one more time. The child was crying and he said that you hit him in the back of the head. I would not do that. I would never hit any child. I don't know why he said that." So then that director whips the screen around and presses play and plays the video. And the teacher's response was, "Oops, busted." And crazy, So obviously terminated the teacher immediately. Had to report this to licensing. It was an abuse and neglect case. Had to report it to the parent. It was a bad situation. This was a program that was nationally accredited. This was a program that was 4 stars with Texas Rising Star. So if they were cited for prohibited punishment, then they would lose their stars. They would lose their accreditation. So, the actions of this teacher had financial, consequences tied to it. So it was not well. When licensing came out to investigate, they were so impressed with how well the director handled the situation that, when the director noticed the child crying, number one, she actually stepped into the classroom to see what was going on, where they said, most directors probably would have just kept on walking. And even when she asked, "Why is he crying?" "Oh, I don't know. He's been crying all day." The fact that the director took the initiative to go over to the child and look into the situation. They were so impressed with how well and how thorough and how quickly the director handled the situation. The only thing the center got cited for was the teacher not using self-control. So they were very blessed. They were very, very lucky. And that did not have any impact on all of their statuses. Because they very easily could have been cited for abuse. They could have very easily had been cited for prohibited punishment. All right. So y'all hear me say this all the time. Bad things happen to good people. All right. Bad things happen to good people. The way you respond and the way you handle these situations are critical. All right. And being prompt and thorough in the way you handle these situations is critical. And licensing is aware that things like this are going to happen. All right. But the way you handle it could make a big difference. All right. I know of another school a little bit of a different situation, but it involved a teacher that did not handle a situation well and was very aggressive with a child. But this particular school, once again, very promptly addressed it and handled it, but was able to show licensing that this teacher had received extensive training on positive guidance and discipline, that this teacher has had extensive training on engagement techniques and interactions with the children, and that this teacher's behavior was a clear violation of the school's policies and procedures, and this teacher's behavior was not consistent with the training that she had received. And the school did get cited by licensing for the situation, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And in the narrative on licensing's website, this licensing rep was wonderful, that in her narrative, she put that, this teacher had received extensive training on positive guidance and discipline and violated the company's policy, and therefore was terminated for this behavior. So, even though there was a deficiency, the way that she worded it in the narrative was very helpful, very helpful. All right. So again, you being present in that classroom and making your presence known is important. All right. Some of you may view potty breaks as an obstacle or a distraction. Having to take supplies back to a classroom, that might be a distraction or an obstacle. You need to look at these situations as opportunities. When that teacher asked me for a potty break, that is an opportunity for me to go into that classroom and connect with those children, to connect with the other teacher that's in there, to observe what's going on, to get a feel for what's going on in that classroom. All right. So again, those types of situations are opportunities for you. One of the last things I want to talk about in our time together here today is procrastination. All right. Procrastination is another enemy to leadership. There are so many times that we need to deal with a difficult situation, or we need to complete a task that is undesired, and therefore we procrastinate and we put it off. And putting it off and procrastinating typically will create more challenges and more chaos. All right. And how many of you have ever procrastinated on something, and then when you finally did it, you were like, why didn't I do that sooner? And especially after you did whatever you procrastinated on and you saw the impact that it had on your program, then you're really like, why didn't I do this sooner? All right. And then you have those internal consequences of beating yourself up. Why did I procrastinate on this? All right. So this takes a lot of practice. This takes a lot of strength. When you have an undesired task, an undesired conversation, y'all just get it done. All right. Just get it done, because the more you procrastinate, the more issues it's going to create. All right. So there you go. Stephanie is asking, in the story I told about the teacher that hit the child, was there a second teacher in the classroom? Unfortunately, no, there wasn't. All right. Now from a risk management standpoint, I'm always going to encourage y'all to have at least 2 adults in every classroom when possible. But I understand that due to your class sizes, due to your enrollment, due to your staffing shortage, due to your budget, that may not be possible, but 2 adults in a classroom is always best case scenario. All right. And that helps with staff supervision as well. All right. So yeah, but that's where cameras, observation windows, and again, you moving around the classroom is going to be very important right there. All right. And if you are able to delegate some of these undesired tasks, then delegation is always an option. But you don't want to delegate too much, all right? To where you're always delegating the difficult task to one particular person, because that's not going to be motivating to them. It's not going to strengthen your tools in your wheelhouse, all right? So, I'm okay with a little bit of delegating, but, and it might be I'm going to delegate some other task so that I can deal with this difficult one. All right. And so that is where the delegation is probably going to be most effective. Hey, Stephanie, I need you to finish up federal food program for me because I need to deal with this situation that I've been procrastinating on, or whatever it may be. All right. All right. Decision making, again, as a leader, as a manager of your program, we have to make a lot of decisions. Always ask yourself, the decision that I'm about to make, how will it be perceived by a jury? Okay. I like to use that scenario. Whatever decision I'm about to make, how would it be perceived by a jury? That's going to change your perspective on the decision you're about to make. Never make decisions by yourself. Okay. Always run it past someone else. Hey, I was about to make this decision. What do you think? All right. Now, if you have other leaders in your program that you can collaborate with and help with decision making, that's good. I definitely encourage you to join professional organizations that other directors and other leaders get together, and you've got a group of peers that understand your world, that are also leaders that you can run things past, but make sure that it's a trusted source. All right. I know that there are a lot of Facebook groups out there for directors and leaders of early education programs. And I belong to quite a few of those groups. I usually just silently watch and listen. Y'all, some of the advice I see people give make me cringe. I see a lot of illegal advice given in some of these groups. So, if you are going to, a source like that, make sure that it's a trusted source and do a little bit of due diligence before you follow that advice. Now, I'm part of the Association for Early Learning Leaders. That is a very good group, a very trusted group. But I think the networking that we do with early learning leaders has been so incredibly helpful. I'm part of a closed group of other owners that we collaborate and feed off of each other quite a bit. But it helps with that decision making. All right. But do your due diligence and make sure that you're getting good advice. Of course, they always say never make a decision when you're angry, stressed, or upset. When you're angry, stressed, and upset, that's when you make poor decisions. All right. They actually say never make a decision when you're angry, stressed, upset, tired, hungry, or you don't feel good. you're going to make a poor decision. And some of you might be like, well, I'm never going to make a decision because I'm one of those all the time, right? But the angry, stressed, and upset, definitely you don't need to be making a decision. Y'all know I have an entire 3-hour workshop that you can find on my website, timthetrainer.com, or on Facebook under the videos on demonstrating competency, using good judgment, and maintaining self-control in the classroom. And it's a wonderful webinar. I have to say, it's a wonderful webinar, and I encourage you to have not only yourself, but your teachers watch it. But, you know, when we talk about demonstrating competency, having good judgment, and maintaining self-control in the classroom and when performing assigned duties, are you in a mental place? Are you mentally capable of making a decision right now? And you need to be conscious enough to be able to say, I am not mentally in a good place right now to make a decision. And recognizing that you're human, and every single one of us that are participating in this webinar are going to be in that place daily. All right, that there's going to be different moments in the day where we get triggered, the world is not going our way, and we don't have the mental capacity to make a good decision. All right, but the key here is to be aware of it, to be conscious enough to say, I should not be making a decision right now. Until I calm down, until I feel safe, okay, I don't need to be making this decision. All right. And then when you do get back to your executive state, then we can make that decision. And I want y'all to coach this to your team and practice this with your teachers, that they're going to have moments in the classroom where the world is not going their way and they're getting triggered. And are they conscious enough to be able to say, I shouldn't be making a decision right now? All right. And it's going to happen, y'all. We're human. We're going to happen right there. All right. Of course, identify the purpose of your decision, the value of your decision, the decision that you're making. Does it complement your beliefs and your values, or does it go against your beliefs and your values? You know, is it in the best interest of the children? Those are things that you always want to ask yourself right there. And so, you know, I always encourage you to have your mission statement, your philosophy statement, you know, right there in your office, on your desk. All right. You know, so that when you're making these decisions, they complement what you stand for. All right. I had on my agenda, you know, to talk a little bit about communication. I've told you earlier, you know, communication solves 9 out of 10 of your problems. So much will be solved with good communication. You know, characteristics of good communication, articulation. All right. You know, focus on the issue and say what you intend to say. All right. Don't rely on other people to know what you mean. All right. Mean what you say what you mean. So focus on that articulation. Good communication means that you're an active listener. All right. A lot of times, whether it's an upset parent, a disgruntled employee, you actively listening to them is so important. And that means you're actually focused on what they have to say. You're not on your phone, you're not on your computer, you're not, you know, doing something else, but I'm actually giving them eye contact and listening to them. All right. That's critical. Of course, sharing information, sharing common interests, sharing things that you have in common. will help with communication, especially when you're working with your parents. That's going to help build that trust right there. Respect what people have to say. We've talked a lot today about respect. And y'all, I am a really big person on honesty. And especially when you do have issues in your schools, and you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna make mistakes. People are going to make mistakes, and things are going to happen. Be honest. We dropped the ball. We have policies in place. We have processes in place, and they weren't followed. And we dropped the ball, and this incident happened. And my job now is to regain your trust. And here's how I'm going to regain your trust. This is what I'm going to do to address this situation. This is what I'm going to do to address the policies and the processes that were not followed. And my goal is to regain your trust. And just be honest with that parent, all right? Or honest with the employee, all right? And I like that, I have to regain your trust. And one thing I have learned that when I'm having a difficult conversation with a parent, and if I say, look, we dropped the ball, we messed up, and we did not follow our own policies, I have to regain your trust. Usually, as soon as I say, I have to regain your trust, you just got their trust back. All right. That tends to work really well, but it needs to be genuine. All right. When you're having communication with folks, you leave your ego at the door. All right. Leave your ego at the door. All right. So, that was a whole lot of information in a short amount of time. And that 3 hours went really quick. Thank you all for hanging in there and rushing and flushing when needed. I appreciate it. The link to complete your online worksheet should already be posted on Facebook. And so if you just refresh your browser once the video is over, you should see that link. I will also cut and paste it into the chat box as soon as we are done recording. All right. So you've got two options for those of you that are new to this. If you're going to pay for your certificate with a credit card, you're going to click on the link that says online worksheet paying with a credit card. If you have set up an online account with me and you have a 5-digit account number that I have assigned to you, then you will click on the link that says online worksheet paying with an account number. All right. And then I will charge your account accordingly. If you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about right now, then you probably don't have an account with me. All right. So you'll click on online worksheet paying with a credit card. All right. So like I said, the link should already be there. It's 10 questions based on the material that we talked about today. And then I will email your certificate of completion. Now, we did have a very large number of people that participated today. Thank you so much. So it gives me a little bit of time, all right? It takes me a little bit of time to review the worksheets and to issue the certificates, but I usually get them turned around pretty quickly, all right? I hope to see many of you and many of your teachers tomorrow morning on Saturday at 9 o'clock right here on Facebook Live. And once again, we'll be talking about current health practices and preventing the spread of illnesses. Same thing, multiple people can view it on one device, just each person will need to complete their worksheet. All right. Know that you can always call, you can always email us if you need anything, any coaching or any guidance. We're here for you. We'll try to help you out the best we can. And then otherwise, Thank you all for the job that you do, the passion that you have, the purpose of what you do. Thank you for having the grit and the determination to hang in there and continue to push through these difficult times. We will make it through this, and we will make it through this together. All right. And we're going to have an amazing celebration when it's all over with. All right. So, yes. So yeah, the email address that you use, it can be whatever email address. The name on the worksheet is the most important thing, but I actually recommend that you tell your employees to use a school email address and to not use their personal email address. Sometimes when they have their certificate emailed to their personal address, it tends to get lost more often than not, and we end up with a duplicate certificate request. If you have them email it straight to the school, then you get it, you've got it, and that's very helpful. So I actually recommend that y'all use school-owned email addresses. Yes. I need a cruise in my life. Me too. All right. We are missing so many different parts of our organization, you know, the weekend mini conferences, the in-person training events. But I think what we're missing the most are our cruises. And so right now, Carnival is not allowing groups in on their ships at this point until the end of October, and then they will reevaluate the situation at the end of October. But obviously, we cannot plan a training cruise until they start allowing groups. And so, you know, once we get the green light that it is safe for us to do a training cruise and that the cruise ship is able to accommodate us, we will get one scheduled, I promise you, because I think that me and Leslie and Kevin probably miss the cruises more than y'all do. I know y'all miss it too, but we will cruise again someday. All right. Yes, as soon as it's safe. All right. Y'all have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. Have a wonderful transition back to school. Make safe choices. And I will see all of you very, very soon. Thank you for participating today. Bye, everybody.